Welcome back to the Hot Mess to Awesomeness Podcast, a show all about inspiring smart, busy women to put their happiness at the top of their to-do list. Join your host and life coach, Dion Thompson, as she chats with amazing women who have figured out how to make their happiness a priority, and more importantly, what it's really like to go from hot mess to awesomeness. And now, on with the show. Welcome, everybody, to our first break that every busy woman deserves. I'm so happy to have you all here with me, and like I said, I'm really excited to engage in these conversations and to be in this space with all of you, knowing you and some of you what you're going through. I know that this is going to be a great opportunity. So, I'm going to be our guest for the show, and I'm going to share a little bit about sort of how I see what's happening and talk a little bit about change and what that feels like and how to walk through that in a way that feels like it honors you and where you're at. And so now that I can hear everybody officially, got through that little blip, and you had your hand up, did you want to share, or were you just telling me that my microphone wasn't?
I was just trying to tell you that Sherry was trying to get your attention.
Thank you, Anne. Sherry's yelling at you.
I was like, hey.
Would anybody like to share why, what they're hoping to gain from these experiences, and maybe a little bit about, like, you're welcome to share why you jumped on and signed up. Any thoughts? Y'all have thoughts. Come on now.
Okay, I'll go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What am I trying to get from it? I think I'm on it because I love you and I love what you're doing for community and how you show up. And I am feeling kind of isolated already. No kids, nobody with a cat that I was dancing with. So just to connect and see where everybody else is at and support other people and see if I can do anything to help people. And just be part of the tribe.
Awesome. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So, fine. That's fine. I wanted to share a little bit about why I did this. And yes, I do. I love gathering in community. And I am and Anne, you and I will get into this a little bit more. I think maybe we'll make one of these chats all about you, but I am definitely someone who, my knee-jerk response when I need to process something new is I'm a nurturer and I need knowledge. And I'm like, I need more information to be able to know what it is that I don't know so that I can feel like I can do what I need to do. And I need my people around me. So Wise Women Say is definitely a testament to that, because I was going through some tough times and needed community. I'm like, how can I make this happen? Great, I'll just invite people over and it'll be awesome. And the event and really a lot of the things that I do are really about pulling people together so that we can talk about the process of what we're going through, because our experiences are so unique. So comparing stories and sharing our stories is powerful, but comparing them is actually not what we're hoping for. The idea is about recognizing that we're each processing our experiences through our own lens and through our own values and through our own emotions, and to know that we're all doing this and we are not alone. So for me, this was about pulling my peeps together so that I could be reminded of that, because I am personally self-isolating with my children and my mother-in-law and my dog and my husband periodically. And I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of these connections, a lot of virtual connections, a lot of digital connections. And I've actually noticed that I'm almost feeling overwhelmed even by that, because who is that exactly? I don't know. I'm going to mute you, Anne. See if that'll help. Sherry. Okay. Because I'm finding the other part of me is that I suffer from comparisonitis. So, in my business world or in my mom life, it's been pretty common for me to compare myself to other people. And then from there, the shame and the guilt and the shoulds kind of start to rage. And I needed a space where it's not about what are you doing and what is that and why aren't you doing this and you should be doing this and or even just seeing other moms do different things and then feeling like what I'm doing is not enough. So I'm focusing on what's important to me, why I do what I do, and from there help myself feel more confident in the decisions that I'm making moving forward. Because what I know to be true is that we are each making decisions based on our values. And again, if you've been around me a while, you know that this is kind of a big deal for me. And knowing what drives you, knowing what's important to you, knowing what matters to you most will dictate what you do next. And it will also impact how we respond to others. Because in reality, we are each doing that. We are each responding to our own values and our own systems and our own priorities. And when we see someone do something that doesn't match our model of the world, and right now we're seeing a lot of people doing different things that may or may not match our model of the world, we can start to feel anger and resentment. And everything is so magnified at this point. You know, conversations are a lot more volatile and they're not more dense and full, and emotions are really raw and at the surface. And we maybe don't always feel we have the luxury for that pause, reflect, go into our compassionate selves and be able to say, oh, well, you do things differently and that's okay. Because now we're looking at things through the lens of safety. And safety is pretty crucial driver for most people at a really core level. So I wanted us to spend some time reflecting on our values. So if you haven't at some point or in any way reflected on what your values are, so I know there's some great women who have some great tools, and I have one too to determine what your values are, to just see them out in front, because it that clarity of knowing specifically what matters to you and in the way that you articulate it and contextualize it for yourself. So to say that family is important, okay, that's great, but what does that look like? In what context? My family is very important to me, and distancing myself from my family inside my house is also very important to me. So, you know, it's not about, it's not just about a blanket statement. It's kind of getting really clear on what it looks like and when it doesn't match what that feels like. So when you feel disconnected, anger, resentment, off, like when it feels wrong, often it's because your values are not being honored in that moment. And so getting some clarity on what those are so that you know where you're coming from. It's always advantageous to know who you're bringing to the table in a conversation. And then from there, when you have that awareness, to be able to pause and think about who they're bringing to the table in a conversation or in a situation. And it's not about excusing behavior or being like, okay, that's fine. It's really just about opening the lines of communication from a place of compassion and non-judgment. And so that's kind of what I wanted to address and invite you to explore a little bit more as we're going through all of these talks and as you're reflecting on where you're at and what you're going through. And like I said, today I wanted to talk a little bit about change and how we can get some more clarity on how we want to show up during change, because change happens to us all the time, whether we choose it or not. And what it often incites is the fear of change. And so for many of us in an everyday regular sense, you know, something will happen and then we'll either decide to acknowledge it or not. So you can look at it and say, okay, so the change has occurred, and now moving forward, the person I was yesterday is not the person I am today. So what does that mean? And I'm going to take strides to move ahead. But for a lot of things in our lives, we're like, hell to the no. That is not what I've signed up for. That is not what I want. So I'm going to just keep being the person I was. And that may or may not work depending on what's transpiring. And this may have happened in different ways. It may have sort of been a slow process. I know for me, I felt like I was battling the fear of change for about 15 years, sort of putting my head in the sand as to who I was becoming. and what that meant. And we don't have that luxury right now. And so knowing that we have done this before and a different scale at a different level and for different things, and then knowing what some of the tools and strategies could be, you may find that helpful to be able to just during your own reflection, during your own moments of quiet as you're trying to process your feelings and how you want to move forward, you may find that helpful. And then from that change, like when we get to that space where we're like, okay, so this is it. This is my new normal. This is my new life. I am not sure what my title is yet, but I may in about a minute become a homeschool educator. Not sure. I may become someone who does a completely online business without human contact for a very long time. I'm not sure. But I'm willing to step into these new identities and some of the things that you can use when you're going through that process and how that can be beneficial. So I'm going to throw up another, like a handout that I have that you guys don't have with you. Some of you may, and I call it the roadmap to awesomeness. And what I thought was really helpful is as I was going through this and I was struggling and I'm like, wait, I think I made a picture of this so that I used it. And I tell people often, I'm like, it's a great anchor so that you can externalize where you are and you can start to see the steps that you can make moving forward. And I find it really helpful because it reminds me that this is not my forever. Today is not my forever, and everything is going to be shifting and moving, and I get to decide how I show up. I can't decide what's going to happen to me. I can't decide what the world's going to do, but I can decide to honor my values, to maintain what I feel is my sense of integrity, and to show up with compassion and curiosity in all of my relationships as best I can. Do I fucking fall flat on my face and yell and scream and lose my shit? Oh yeah, big time. But what I'm grateful for is being able to be pulled back, have an anchor, have a place where I can reconnect and reflect on how I want to show up. So this is a little infographic, and I apologize if it's kind of small. I don't wonder if I can. No, that doesn't make any sense. But in the pink area, that's where we're facing the fear of change, and being willing to acknowledge it. And I'm not talking about like, ignoring, because fear exists and it's not about ignoring it. It's not about fighting it. It's really about acknowledging it, acknowledging yourself through the process and feeling more comfortable with this, what you can do in the small moments to be able to move forward. So everybody is going to be managing this completely differently. I know that. I get that. I see it every day in every conversation. And what I've been finding fascinating about my own emotions and what's been coming up for me is that when I hear somebody else processing something differently, I instantly have should I be doing something different? I never even thought about, I didn't think to call that person and cancel that thing. And I'm like, I have that like, and then no, let's go back to why I do what I do. And if I do want to go and call that person and cancel, well then, okay, I'll do that. But it's, what everybody's doing in the order in which they do them is truly dependent upon where they're feeling challenged and what they need in order to feel more safe and more in control. And so here, this is about accepting this new chapter of our stories. And I'm not saying about, putting the big old rose-colored glasses on or putting the silver lining, although those conversations are nice and uplifting. It's about accepting that we are stepping into this new chapter and of our own story, and you get to decide to decide to be the hero of your own story. You always are. So how we choose to show up into this new chapter, that's a decision we may have to make every day. You may have to make it multiple times a day. You may have to make it every 5 minutes. But it is a bit of a process, and especially if you don't have a habit of doing this. So if this isn't something you're reflecting on regularly, change and upheaval and massive shifts, this may be a new concept to this being out of whack with what was your story before. And so it takes, like anything, it's not something that you should just be good at. It takes practice, it takes connection, it takes support, it takes accountability, it takes your community, it takes these kinds of conversations to be reminded that how you choose to show up today and tomorrow It's always a choice, no matter what you did yesterday. So accepting that new chapter, and I, believing that everything is always working out for you. That's a mantra that I use regularly. A lot of people have different versions of it, whatever works for you. But it's this idea that as you continue to show up inside your values and with integrity, the long-term impact, it's not that, everything's going to be great and rosy and fabulous. It's that how you choose to show up will always be honoring you, and that will always feel fulfilling. And I mean, we're moving towards identifying what your values are. Like I said, I find those really crucial. And then once you sort of take that next step now, and I think the idea of facing the fear of change and processing this change, we had like about 30 seconds to do that. And I think a lot of us, we feel really jarred, or that it was really jarring that that happened. And so now we're sort of stepping into that next space of facing this uncertainty, and we're back and forth, change and uncertainty. And so working to get a bit of a clearer picture on where it is that you want to be moving forward with as much clarity as you can, again, knowing that we don't know exactly what that will look like. So we can't control our environment. We can't control what the government's doing. We can't even control our finances at this point, but how do you want to show up in those moments of uncertainty? That's the thing that you can create and move towards. And so establishing your reflective practice. So this is a big deal for me, and this is kind of where I wanted to land with our call today. If you haven't already, I truly believe that there are 3 things that we can do daily, whether you are in your home, whether you are going to work every day, or whether you are literally working 24/7. Now that circumstance is obviously different, and how it's going to look for each person is a little bit different. But to me, there are 3 things that we can do to help ourselves build the habit of managing uncertainty and managing the fear of uncertainty, and also filling our cups in the process. Because for the busy women out there, the doers, we have to put that oxygen mask on first. And this is what I think these breaks for me are all about making sure that I am filling myself up with what I need, so that I can continue to show up for the people who need me, because they're going to continue to need me every single day for what may be months and months and months at a high intense level. And I can't run the risk of going into burnout again. Been there one too many times. It's not an option. So what is it that we can do to stave off burnout? And that is by keeping our cups filled. And so through opportunities like this call and this break, and through the willingness to carve out, it could be minutes, to reflect on, is this how I want to show up today, or how do I want to show up today? And to create a little bit of space for yourself, and to increase some of the core basic self-care practices: going outside for a walk, getting fresh air, moving your body in a way that feels comfortable for you, fueling your body with food that feels good for you, and filling your mind with thoughts, ideas, and feelings that really resonate and feel good for you. And the last thing is about celebrating how you're doing it every day, how you're showing up, how you are learning and growing, and how you are being the woman you desire to be every day. No matter what transpires, no matter how shitty you were, no matter what behaviors came out, there is a moment that needs to be honored, and finding that and acknowledging it every day, whether that's in the morning, in the middle of the afternoon, in the evening, whether you have to do it frequently to be reminded that you have the capacity to do great things, and you have faced challenges before, and this is just a different challenge at a different level, and you have what it takes, and this community is here to support you for that. So I'll share this. Hello. I'll share that thing in the email that's going to come out to you guys later this afternoon. If you don't have it already, feel free to download it and do whatever you'd like with it. For me, like I said, I use it as an anchor. And so that was that was the preamble. And I, like I said before, moving forward, our conversations will definitely be more geared towards having a question and answer period, and really learning more from other women who are doing different things in different ways, whether they're in business or they're at home, or like I said, or they're maybe in emergency services. There's so much information, and take from these days whatever you need, and you'll have them recorded if you need to revisit and want to do and engage again. I really invite you to do that. And starting tomorrow, we will add more actual movement. Today was about moving your mind. Tomorrow will be about moving your body. And then we will be moving your soul, and we'll be interchanging in that fashion. And it's going to be fabulous. So I do want to honor your time. And so we're at 1:35 right now. I want to leave you with one reflective prompt, and to be honest, I'll actually share a whole bunch of them in our email, because I have like 150. Just a daily, if you're not a journaler already, and I know some of you are, if you struggle with like sitting down with a pen and a piece of paper and start talking to yourself, no, you're not crazy, you're actually super enlightened. Then if you want to use some of these journal prompts to sort of get yourself moving forward, so that you can ask yourself, how do I want to show up today? How did I show up in alignment with my values? How was I compassionate and curious about what's going on, and how is that moving me forward? And if we continue to return to these questions and fortify our own answers, you will naturally continue to show up as the woman you desire to be, no matter what the world fucking throws at us. And so that's what I want for everybody, myself included. So my first reflective prompt that I'm going to leave you with is, what is your biggest inspiration today? In this it doesn't have to be in this moment, but what is inspiring you right now? And when you start to write that out, you could even go so far as to say, why is this inspiring me right now? What is it that I need from this, and why do I need it? And explore yourself that way. The most, I think, loving thing that we can do for ourselves is to be curious about our own thoughts and our own behaviors, and from there allow ourselves the self-compassion to love ourselves through that process. So that's what I want for everybody. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. Join Dion again next week to learn more about what you can do to go from hot mess to awesomeness.